You didn't change your mind because you were wrong. You changed your position because they were louder. And you've been calling that open-mindedness ever since. Before the meeting, you were clear. You had worked through the problem. You had stress-tested the options. You had defended your view when a colleague pushed back and held it. By the time that private conversation ended, you knew exactly where you stood. Then the executive room changed. A senior leader arrived and offered their view. They didn't pressure anyone aggressively. They didn't ask for a vote. They simply stated their preference with the quiet assumption that the room would now orient around what they had said. And the room did, including you. You didn't simply fold. You offered a response that made you sound like someone who had listened carefully and updated thoughtfully. But on the drive home, replaying the conversation in the dark, you knew the truth. Nothing they said actually changed your analysis. The analysis didn't move. The authority in the room did. And your position followed the authority, not the analysis. We disguise this retreat constantly. We call it flexibility. We call it reading the room. We call it being open-minded. But there is a massive difference between updating your view and abandoning it. Here is what abandoning actually looks like. A brilliant marketing lead spent weeks building a disruptive launch strategy. She held the line against pushback from her own team for a full month. Then, a VP casually in passing suggested a safer direction. She instantly softened. She didn't receive new data. She didn't hear a better argument. She contorted her own analysis to align with the VP's preference, and she dressed it up as thoughtful reconsideration. That is the borrowed backbone. Some people appear incredibly decisive until a stronger personality enters the room. Then, the backbone they were carrying turns out to belong to someone else. A borrowed backbone collapses under pressure. A real position survives discomfort. Most professionals operate like a thermometer. They read the temperature of authority in the room and adjust their display to match it. A true decision identity operates like a thermostat. It reads the room, but it holds its own setting, and it forces the environment to adjust to it. I once watched a consultant do exactly the wrong thing. They had been hired to diagnose a failing division. They found deep structural flaws, and every single one pointed directly to the CEO's pet project. During the readout, they sensed the CEO's defensiveness, and they started hedging. They diluted the truth. They softened the findings. They changed their position without receiving a single piece of new data. They were navigating with a compass that pointed to true power instead of true north. Here is what makes this pattern dangerous. It is not dramatic. It compounds quietly. Every time you back down under pressure, the stronger personality learns one thing. Pressure works on you. Your internal threshold drops slightly every time. Like a muscle trained to give way before the heavy weight even arrives. And then something worse happens. You stop waiting for the pressure to arrive. You begin to anticipate it. You pre-soften your recommendation before the meeting. You sand down the edges of your own analysis to avoid the conflict that hasn't happened yet. You are now managing their discomfort before they have even expressed it. That is not leadership. That is self-erasure dressed as strategy. Now here is the blueprint for breaking this pattern entirely. In the historical account of Daniel in Babylon, his peers engineered a royal decree. They made his daily practice illegal. The penalty was the lion's den. This was not peer pressure. This was institutional pressure wrapped in legal form, backed by the full power of an empire. David didn't argue. He didn't petition the king. He didn't construct a legal counter-argument. He went into his house, opened the windows, and prayed as he did aforetime. The decree changed the legal landscape. It did not change Daniel. He embodied the ancient Hebrew concept of aman, established, firm, reliable. Think of a heavy stone pillar standing completely still in the middle of a rushing river. The water breaks violently around it, but the pillar does not move. He held his position without holding a contest. That is the posture. Before we get to the diagnostic, I want to give you a sentence. One sentence, memorize it. I remain where I am on this. I know a chief operating officer who used exactly this against an aggressive board member determined to tear a restructuring plan apart. The board member pushed hard. The COO didn't argue, didn't appease, didn't negotiate. They acknowledged the concern and then said it. I remain where I am on this. That sentence does not argue. It does not dismiss. It simply reports the state of your analysis after the challenge has been heard. It is calm, it is complete, and it is one of the most powerful things a leader can say. Now here is the tool that makes all of this practical. In your next meeting, when a stronger personality challenges your position, ask yourself one question before you respond. What did I learn that I did not know before they spoke? If they gave you a fact you had missed, update. That is the correct functioning of an open mind. That is the software patch. Download it. But if the answer is nothing, if they simply applied institutional weight to a perspective you had already considered and dismissed, you do not move. Updating based on evidence is intellectual integrity. Moving based on pressure is manual override. And if someone else controls your override switch, you are not the one making the decision. The room always remembers who moved for the wrong reasons, and it always remembers who didn't. When you become known as someone who does not move under pressure, people stop applying it, because experience has taught them it doesn't work on you. Your judgment becomes worth the investment of real responsibility. Hold the line, drop the contest, apply the Aman posture, and let the room break around you. If you're a high-performing leader or a founder looking for answers, take the Decision Identity Scorecard today. It'll only take you 5 minutes and you will get the answers you are looking for. Link is in the description.